I started my own Pies Descalzos/Barefoot Foundation when I was 18. We provide education to vulnerable children in Colombia and other developing countries. I am an avid believer that education, and especially early childhood development, is the key to breaking the cycle of poverty. My early childhood was spent in Newark, New Jersey, but my family moved to Denver when I was 12. Accounting for the unpaid care economy can drive progressive policies such as paid family leave, Social Security credits for early childcare, tax credits, and quality early childhood education. Both the IDB and Foundation Alas believe that the future of prosperity and equality that we hope for has to start today with higher investment and higher quality in early childhood development programs throughout the region. My graduation was an amazing moment for my family, my community. In my early childhood, we lived on a subsidized income, with government assistance. At one point when I was growing up, my mother was making $14,000 a year. Now I had made it out of the hood, so to speak. I focus on supporting high-quality early childhood health care and education. By betting my resources on very young children, I know I'm making an investment that pays guaranteed dividends with a high rate of return. I was born in Iowa City and spent my early childhood on a hippie commune just outside of town. Studies have proven that early childhood education returns to society as much as $12 for every dollar invested. Our goal is to identify the most important development opportunities for children 5 years and younger, providing insight to transform early childhood education from a social policy issue into an economic imperative. We have lots of evidence that putting investments in early childhood education, even evidence from very hard-nosed economists, is one of the very best investments that the society can possibly make. And yet we still don't have public support for things like preschools. Some of the companies we helped start are names you know. An office supply company called Staples, where I'm pleased to see the Obama campaign has been shopping, the Sports Authority, which became a favorite of my son's. We started an early childhood learning center called Bright Horizons that First Lady Michelle Obama rightly praised. Providing all Latin American children with the education and early childhood development that they need is in the best interest of all, so it has to be a priority for all of us. Not only the government and civil society, but also the business sector. The research clearly demonstrates high-quality early childhood opportunities help children succeed. I don't carry any early childhood trauma around with me, if that's what you're hinting at. The story of the bicycles, and there were 3 of them which were stolen from me, I've dealt with it well. All my habits through life have been singularly removed from any condition of reliance on others, and the feeling, right or wrong, that aloneness is my proper position has prevailed since my early childhood, no doubt nourished and strengthened by many and quick-following bereavements. Every working family in America knows how hard it is today to find affordable childcare or early childhood education. I was very insecure growing up, and even though I'm not that girl anymore, I think that the passion, that not feeling pretty and being insecure, is where my soul came from. And from early childhood, I let it free on stage. I'm hoping someday that we'll be able to start a consortium with places like Carnegie Hall to work on early childhood education. I really feel that's the most important place to put the arts. Teaching in the upper elementary grades had given me a deep appreciation of the gifts and graces that are specific to individuals with 10 or 11 years of experience as human beings. It is, I think, a magical time, when so much has been learned, but not yet enough to entirely extinguish the magical reach and freedom of early childhood. My early childhood memories center around this typical American country store and life in a small American town, including 4th of July celebrations marked by fireworks and patriotic music played from a pavilion bandstand. One of my early childhood memories was my grandmother always having a bowl of Nestle chocolate bars at her house. My sister and I would argue over who could eat the chocolate bars. Looking back, I don't know why we just didn't share. We could have split them. In the 1950s, my family first lived in West Los Angeles. Dad was studying architecture at USC and we didn't have a lot of money. He'd buy crumbling fixer-uppers, make repairs and sell them for a small profit. Then we'd move on. My early childhood image of him is standing on a ladder and sanding the front door. I think that's something that all mothers have to deal with, especially single mothers. We work, and we have to leave the kids behind. And I think that's one of the reasons that we, not only as women but as families, we have to advocate for early childhood education for all of our children. I certainly don't think it's inevitable that we don't love children who don't carry our own DNA. If that were true, we wouldn't have millions of successful adoptions to consider. I do think that it's harder to love a child when you come into that child's life after the unrequited passion of infancy and early childhood has passed. My early childhood prepared me to be a social psychologist. I grew up in a South Bronx ghetto in a very poor family. From Sicilian origin, I was the first person in my family to complete high school, let alone go to college. I consider early childhood events as most essential to a man's scientific and philosophical development. I have a strong memory of my early childhood. I can remember life before I was 2. I remember being toilet trained like it was last week, and it wasn't last week. I do remember all of the songs of my childhood, and they helped us to cope with being orphans. But the memories of my parents in my early childhood and the solid foundations of socialization and strong values that they gave me never left me for one day. I have a vision of education that spans from early childhood to K-12 to college to the workforce. Because every step along the way is important, a chance for our state to do right by our kids and their parents, or to let them down. My early childhood was notable by an absence of proper meals and highly processed food. My mother is a professor of early childhood education. When I was 2, she would say she knew I was going to be an actor. Investments, for example, in early childhood and in our children return enormous dividends in terms of their own academic success, reduced cost in the healthcare system, productivity and growth in the future. Your memories from your early childhood seem to have such purchase on your emotions. They are so concrete. I actually support President Obama's initiatives on early childhood. He has appointed me as a commissioner to consult his administration on educational excellence for Hispanics in the U.S. We try to find ways to improve the education system for Hispanics in America, to achieve excellence. Some men have a necessity to be mean, as if they were exercising a faculty which they had to partially neglect since early childhood. She may hide it, but Clinton is a policy nerd. Ask about microfinance, and she'll talk your ear off. Mention early childhood interventions, and she will gush about obscure details of a home visitation experiment in Elmira, New York, that dramatically improved child outcomes. I grew up in Cambridge in England, and my love of mathematics dates from those early childhood days. How one handles success or failure is determined by their early childhood. For me, it's about supporting our indigenous kids and completing that whole journey: early childhood, primary school, high school, university and then career. I want to be a part of that process all the way, wearing lots of different hats. I think the impulse took shape in early childhood when I was very ill with lymphoma for a number of years. I spent a lot of time in hospitals and sick rooms, being read to by various relatives, and I learned to associate books with love and attention. The Summit of the Americas is an excellent platform to raise awareness and secure commitments from heads of state and different sector leaders regarding early childhood development. I was going to be a writer, and that turned into journalist. And then that turned into a career in children's literature, which turned into early childhood education, which turned into psychology, which turned into pre-med, which turned into nursing school, which turned into communication, which turned into marketing and advertising. It is on us to support our children and early childhood educators as we work toward having a healthier and better educated state where people have the opportunity to live a more abundant and purposeful life. I suppose if you look back to your early childhood, you accept everything people tell you, and that includes a heavy dose of irrationality. You're told about tooth fairies and Father Christmas and things. Look at the decisions I've made in my life personally, to paint the picture intentionally that I don't believe in, that I'm not a supporter of, that I'm not an advocate of early childhood education is a mistruth. It's an absolute and outright lie, and to continue to perpetuate it is irresponsible. Early childhood education begins early, even before birth. If we expect our children to thrive at our colleges and universities, and succeed in our economy once they graduate, first we must make quality, affordable early childhood education accessible to all. Only 1 in 5 children in the U.S. lives within walking distance of a park. Many more lack access to a quality early childhood education that provides ample time and space to play. From early childhood, I was interested in understanding how the world worked, and assumed I would be some kind of physical scientist or chemist. But the truth was, I didn't know there was another kind of world, the inner world, that was just as interesting, if not more relevant, than what was going on in the outside world. While early childhood experiences may impel, they do not compel. In the end, evil is a matter of choice. The number one way that we can address these long-term challenges of poverty, of education, is to invest in early childhood education. Visit our website for more quotes, quoting.com.